Hi guys, thanks for tuning in again. So I'm here with my dog Rocco. Get up, boy. Get up. Good boy. So say hi, Rocco. So I miss you guys. I miss our class, but it is wonderful to be here with my dog Rocco. He's like, "What are you doing home all the time?" Here you go, boy. All right, go play. Um, so welcome back. I wanted to make a video for you before we go on this long weekend, so that you feel confident if you're doing any makeup work, or working through any more volume of cylinder problems. Great job on the little mini project that we did today. I loved reading through the objects that you guys chose. Definitely was fun to read through. So nice job on that. And that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to choose some items from my house and we're going to work through them and do some volume of cylinders. So first choice, hairspray. Can't live without it. So we're going to measure this. Now I have a ruler at home. If you don't have a ruler, I hope you found a free online ruler app or even just a website. There was a ton of them when I looked. So we're going to measure this thing. I think I'm going to do inches for the first one. So this hairspray bottle is 2 inches in diameter. So we know the diameter goes from one side of the hairspray bottle to the other. And I'm going to include the lid on this. I know obviously I could go up to here, but I'm going to get the whole volume of the hairspray bottle. So again, that was, let's measure again. I think it was 2 inches. Yes, 2 inches in diameter. So what is my radius? Some of us are getting a little confused on that still. So what do you do to diameter to get your radius? Good. You split it in half. Okay, so our radius is, what's 2 divided by 2? 1. All right, so in your responses, I hope that you labeled them. Mine is inches. Okay, so what is the height of this thing? So we will measure, and my height is about 8.5. So 8.5 inches. Okay, so now some of us are having a hard time remembering the equation for volume. And that equation is up here, and we need to start memorizing this, okay? So volume equals the area of the base, which is a circle, times the height. So that would be pi times r squared, our r is 1, times 8.5. All right, so this is an easy one. What is 1 squared? Good. 1 squared is definitely 1. Lost my calculator here. So 1 times 8.5 is what? Good. 8.5. And so all we're going to enter is 8.5 times pi. But remember, I do not want you to use the pi button. I want you to already round it off to 3.14. Because again, some of you don't have a calculator like this where you can press pi. All right, so we are just going to use 3.14. So my answer is 26.69. And if I asked you to round it to the nearest hundredth, we would be good. Some of us are having a little trouble rounding. So if I asked you to round this to the nearest tenth, what would you get? Good, 26.7. Awesome. If I asked you to round that to the nearest whole number, what would you get? 27. All right, good. So we're doing good on that. So now how do we label this? This is volume. Volume is the area of a base, which we know area is square units, and then we're multiplying it by the height, so that makes it cubic units. We're talking about 3D figures here. Okay, so that would be inches cubed. And I know we're having a hard time typing that in Google Forms, so I keep using the caret and a 3. That means cubic or to the third power. So if you're having a hard time typing that, all you have to do is say cubic inches. And so to label it, if I ask you to label it, you can just write it out. cubic inches or abbreviate inches, feet, whatever you use. Okay? So that's our hairspray. Moving on, we have a can of corn. Where'd it go? Oh, I hid it over here. Okay, so our can of corn. Now, every can is different. So if you chose a can of tomato soup, a can of fruit cocktail, whatever you got, all right? All cans are different sizes, so don't think that you got it wrong, okay? We're just going to use different sizes for different cans, okay? So let's measure this one in inches again. So if I measure this across, it's about 2.8, but it's so close. I'm going to say 3. And I hope that you did that too today. So my diameter is 3. So my radius is what? Some of you put that your diameter was 3, but your radius was 2. Now, I don't know what math or what calculator we're using, but that would never be true, right? If my diameter is 3, my radius has to be 1.5 or 3 over 2. I think in what was it? My HRW, you can't put fractions. You have to put decimals. Okay, so 1.5 is my radius. All right, what's the height of this thing? So we're going to measure, and obviously this whole can of corn is not filled to the rim with corn, but we're still going to measure the volume of this whole cylinder. And that would be about, oh, Rocco's talking to you, 4.5. So 4.5. So now again, some people are having a little trouble with the equation pi r squared times height. Make sure that you remember that. And how you remember that is what's the area of a circle, pi r squared, and then multiply it by the height. That's all volume is. Find the area of the base and multiply it by the height. Okay? So 1.5 is our radius, 4.5 is our height. So plug in the numbers that you know. So we don't know volume, so use a V. Equals radius squared, so that's pi first. 1.5 squared, and then 4.5. Some other mistakes that I'm seeing is you're taking that 4.5 and squaring it, and then multiplying it by your radius, and that's messing up your answer. So make sure that you always label your radius R, and then plug it into where R is in your equation. All right, so volume equals 1.5 squared. Now this one you can use your calculator if you need to, and you can use that squared button. So square it, and it is 2.25. So pi times 2.25 times 4.5. All right, so let's plug that in. So 2.25 times 4.5. And in this case, don't round anything until the end. Remember, we've always said that. And times 3.14. All right, there's our answer. So we're going to write the whole thing out, and then we're going to round it. So 31.7925. And again, this is a can of corn. Okay, so it actually is, isn't that crazy comparing these two? Our answer for the can of corn, this has more volume than the hairspray. Isn't that crazy? So because the radius is bigger and it's being squared, it makes it that much larger. Okay, so how do we round this thing? So if we asked to round to the nearest hundredth, then what number are we looking at to make this number go up or stay the same? If you said 2, you are correct. So if we are rounding to the hundredths place, which is our 9, then we have to look at our thousandths place, which is our 2. So if the number is 4 or less, the 9 stays the same. If the number is 5 or bigger, then 9 would have to round up, which makes it a 0, and that means our 7 would have to go up to an 8, okay? But it's a 2, so we're going to stay the same. So volume equals 31.79. And again, we were talking about centimeters. So this would be centimeters cubed or cubic centimeters. And that's our volume. All right, last example for you guys. We are going to talk about chapstick. All right, everybody needs chapstick if you live here in Florida, right? So we're gonna measure this thing. Now, since this is a little smaller, I'm gonna change it and we are gonna talk about centimeters, okay? So if I measure this in centimeters, you can see it's approximately 1.5, okay? So we're gonna go with 1.5 on our diameter. Okay, so then what's our radius? What do I do with diameter? Good, I divide by 2. So take that 1.5 and divide by 2. I hope when you did your mini project today, you didn't go and measure the radius because it's hard to identify the center of that cap, right? So we would just take our diameter and divide it by 2. That's it, you're done. All right, and that would be 0.75, 0.75, so 0.75. And let's find our height. Again, in centimeters, my height, I'll show you guys. My height is about 6.5. So we're gonna go 6.5, and again, we're talking about centimeters. Okay, so what is our equation for volume of a cylinder? Please say it for me. All right, volume, some of you are a little quiet. Volume equals pi r squared times height. Okay, let's plug in what we know. Pi is 3.14. You can put that now if you wanted to, but I'm going to leave it as the symbol pi. All right, my r is 0.75 squared times 6.5. So I have to make sure I square the radius, then multiply by height, then multiply by 3.14. So 0.75 squared, okay, I get 0.5625, and then multiply by your height times 6.5 times 3.14. So take a guess here. Do you think that the chapstick is going to be the biggest or the smallest volume of all? I mean, they cram a lot of chapstick in there, but it's going to be the smallest. Okay, so let's write this down. We have volume equals 11.480625. So this would be very easy if I asked you to round to the nearest hundredth, right? The next number is 0, so your answer would be absolutely 11.48. But if I asked you to round to the nearest tenth, what would we do? If we were rounding to the nearest tenth, we're going to look at that 8, and that 8 means, are we going to round up or stay the same? Very good. We are going to round up, right? So if it asks you to round to the nearest tenth, it would be 11.5. We're going to keep it at hundredths just so we get used to that. 11.48. And how do we measure it? We started with centimeters and now they're cubed, or I could say cubic centimeters. All right. So good job on that. I wanted to walk you through, some of you will be doing the retake for volume of cylinders. So I wanted to walk you through number 10. I know we didn't necessarily do an example of that, but I will post a video that I did for my intensive class, and you guys can watch that too, where it's an example of what happens when you're finding radius. So again, this is number 10 on your retake volume cylinders. And please know that everyone can take the original and the retake. So if you haven't done one of those and you want a better grade on that, please do that by Sunday night. Okay, 2009.6 feet cubed is your volume. So if we have our volume, we have our V already, we need to find radius and height. So if you look on this cylinder, obviously this is what? That's your height, right? So 2009.6 is my volume. So that equals pi, we don't know R, times 10. And what am I forgetting to do here? If you remember the equation, what am I forgetting to do? Good. If you caught it, it was to write the square. Some of you are accidentally finding your radius and then multiplying by height and multiplying by pi, and it just takes away all the hard work that you've done. So make sure you remember this formula, r squared times pi times height, right? Pi r squared is the area of the circle, and then you just multiply it by your height. Okay, so let's move on and I'll help you solve this a little bit, but not too much, okay? So 2009.6 equals pi r squared times 10. So again, we know 10, we know pi, we're trying to solve for r, so we need to get rid of it. What is the opposite of multiplication? Absolutely, division. So divide by what you want to get rid of, and we want to get rid of those two things. If I do that over here, I have to do it over here, but I'm going to write it the right way, right? When we multiply 10 times pi, we write it as 10 pi. We treat that pi just like we do x or y. It's a variable almost. Okay, so what I would do first here is multiply 10 times pi and figure out what it is, but I would treat pi like 3.14. Remember, do not use the pi key on your calculator or laptop. Just already round it to 3.14. Next, multiply 10 times 3.14 and write it in the denominator. And then in your calculator, write 2009.6 divided by whatever you got. Okay? Now, in the end, you're going to have r squared equals something. So you remember that the opposite of addition is subtraction. The opposite of, did I say that right? The opposite of addition is subtraction. Okay, good. The opposite of multiplication is division. The opposite of squaring something is to do what? I hear some of you, but the opposite of squaring something is to take the square root. Remember, we've been working on this a long time, guys. The opposite of squaring something is to take the square root. So 5 times 5 is 25, but the square root of 25 is 5. Okay? So 25 is not going to be your answer in here, I promise. But it should end up being a nice whole number. If you don't get a nice whole number on number 10, make sure you do it again. Okay? So I hope that that helps you. I had a lot of great questions and comments on today's attendance form, so I appreciate you. Thank you, thank you. So I wanted to make sure that I answered questions for you. I wanted to make sure that I touched on those people who said that they were a 1 right now on our scale, because we all know we are 2s and higher, right? So I will keep teaching you the information and you keep working hard. Ask me those good questions and I'll be sure to reach out to you and get back to you on whatever question you may have. All right, I think that's it. I covered everything. So again, remember, pi r squared times height, that is your equation. Treat pi like 3.14 and already round it. And remember, radius is half of your diameter. Have a great weekend. You didn't have to watch this until Monday, but I appreciate you if you logged in early. All right, Rocco says goodbye. I say see you later.